really wasn't about money for me or getting rich. I loved doing this, and I also knew that if I apply myself to this, my career sorted, this is going to be for me. It's going to be the Wild West of technology, and it was very obvious to everyone that this was something very big.
Welcome to another episode of the People of Private Capital. In this special episode, which is part of our Founders Series, we'll be talking today to Bobby Healy. Bobby is a serial entrepreneur, best known for his work with CarTroller here in Europe, a breakout Irish success story. But we'll be taking it right back to Bobby's early entrepreneurial days, his initial engagement as a games developer in the south of France. We'll follow him through the development of a software company in Mexico, coming back to Europe after selling that business, the establishment of CarTroller, which, as I say, was one of those really great Irish success stories. And then more recently, in the last couple of years, the development of Manna Aero. And Manna is a drone delivery company that's focused on the consumer space. Bobby's been achieving some tremendous success with that company. He'll talk about the genesis of that idea and indeed how that company is performing. And then more recently, his engagement as a founder, CTO and advisor to Healy, which is getting him back into the travel industry. So we'll go from aviation to drone delivered coffees and more. Hope you enjoy this episode here on the People of Private Capital. Okay, Bobby, so clearly a lot going on there. I want to start with maybe take it right back to the very beginning and start with kind of a high-level overview of your entrepreneurial journey to date. You're clearly a serial entrepreneur. That's very clear. Have experienced lots of success, and we'll kind of delve into each of them in a little bit more detail. But if we start back with, Bobby as a teenager, right through to today, could you just kind of summarize what that journey looked like, and if there was anything in your early years that suggested that entrepreneurialism would be such a significant part of your life?
Yeah. So, well, teenager to today is 40 years. So I'm going to have to be quick. I'm a curious-minded person, and I'm a left-brain person. So interested in tech, science, STEM, and I would say good at it, not, by any means a rocket scientist, but strong and most importantly, passionate about technology. When I was 13, I got my first computer, ZX Spectrum, and I was absolutely obsessed with it. Yeah. 16K. But I was absolutely obsessed with it. I had learned, 14, when I was 13, I had started to read up about it. You could buy the magazines and kind of the hobby stuff. And it was just such an interesting thing for me. It took over my life. I stopped studying in school. I did terrible leaving cert. I didn't fail, but I just gave up everything else to learn computing and software and programming. And I went as a kind of an avenue, because back in the 80s when I was a teenager, there wasn't really the luxury of sitting back after you did your, high school or your leaving cert. You really were leaning towards earning money to be able to pay your way through life. There was less people would go to university than would now. And I could see that what I had learned and this space was going to start really opening up in a commercial way. It was no longer going to be mainframes and punch cards and guys working in banks, with careers in computing. It was going to be the Wild West of technology, and it was very obvious to everyone that this was something very big. And so I applied myself to programming, which was a hobby, but then very quickly got into writing video games.
Right.
And video games are technically very difficult to do, particularly in the olden days, as some of my friends would call it, where you were doing all of the work, really. The code, I would have been writing in assembler language, Z80 assembler and 6502 at the time. So this is as difficult as it gets, programming.
Right.
Where everything is really hard to do. and video games then is another level, another order of magnitude, or two orders of magnitude even more difficult, because your building blocks are atoms, and you're having to build essentially cars out of atoms. That's kind of the way to think about it. So really, really difficult, but extremely enjoyable. And I got into video games. I got a job. I built a demo tape back then, and you build demo tapes
Yeah,
to show
cassettes,
everyone.
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
cassette, a C10. I still have my original demo tape. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was writing letters for magazines and getting paid 20 quid from these UK magazines for sending code, and people would type all the code in off.
Yeah.
That was me.
It's funny. I remember
you probably typed some of my code in.
Yeah, we may well have done, actually. My first exposure to a computer period was when I was in sixth class. We're probably a similar sort of age, and it was kind of the mid '80s. And the master of the school at the time, himself and his son, were into this, and they had, I can't remember what model they had, but I do remember they were trying to raise money for like an Encyclopedia Britannica or something for the school. And so they'd sold, let's say for 50 pence or 20 pence or whatever it was at the time, a number of tickets, each with, numbers between 1 and 1,000 or whatever it was. And they brought this computer in, connected it to really a CRT. And I remember him walking us through entering this code, which was really a number randomizer. That's all it did. Right. And kind of, at the end of it, it popped out a unique number, and that was the winner, and that was it. But I remember thinking to myself, it was. I thought, this is magic. This is unbelievable. And so did you have a similar experience, or was it video games?
Oh, yeah, 100%. My first time I saw a computer, my aunt had brought me to one of her friends. He was an engineer for Telecom Air, and he had made something. He was an electrical engineer, so he put together, the thing had cables coming out of it.
Yeah.
It was pretty rudimentary, but he had the basic programming language on it, and he was showing me stuff. And to be honest with you, I still remember that. It was a moment for me, and I'll never forget it. I was inspired by him and his son as well. Funnily enough, they were both engineers. They put this thing together, and it was I won't say he was a role model, because I just met him that one evening, but I came away blown away by it. And that was even before, that might have been what actually triggered me to start learning myself and teaching myself, and bringing up to the demo tape. And the demo tape, it wasn't even a video game. It was a bunch of code that really made this computer, the ZX Spectrum, do things that it wasn't supposed to be able to do. That was how you showed yourself off back then.
Yeah.
And I played the demo tape. I applied to this company in Waterford, IDA-backed company in Waterford, called Emerald Software, and I went down and showed them the demo tape, and they were suitably impressed. So I got a job. I was 17 years old. That was it. I wasn't going to college, and as it turns out, my parents forced me to go to college, and it was quite difficult because I'd accepted the job. But I went to college for 6 months, dropped out, and then went to the job.
Right. How do they feel about that?
They didn't understand. Like, my father hated me locking myself in my room learning programming. He wanted me to be a professional footballer.
Oh, right. Okay.
He was a professional footballer, and he thought I was a good footballer.
Right.
And I loved football, but it's not a real job for anyone.
Right.
And so they didn't understand it. My mother was very supportive. My father didn't understand it, but it didn't matter. I mean, I had 100,000% conviction that this was for me. There was no doubt whatsoever. I was very lucky. Like a lot of, I have a 19-year-old daughter. I would wish that she would have the certainty in her life about what she wants to do that I had back then. And not just the certainty. It wasn't just about chasing money. It really wasn't about money for me or getting rich. It was about, I loved doing this, and I also knew that if I applied myself to this, my career is sorted. This is going to be for me. I didn't know at that point that I was going to be building companies or that I'd be doing it. I'm still writing code 40 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm still absolutely, honest to God, crazy about it. Like, I'd be up all night on weekends writing code.
Yeah.
For no particular reason. It's just such a rewarding hobby and interest, and you're always learning. And
yeah, I saw. I know you're very active on Twitter, and I saw that you were programming your home automation system or something to do with your heating system, or it was just
So I'm connect. I built an app that connects my heat pump up to I put in all these new wireless thermostats. I'm connecting it all together to all of the other automation in the house to collect data,
Right.
to optimize all the rooms in the house and feel for, obviously you could probably buy that off the shelf, but much more fun to build it.
Yeah.
And there's some of it's about keeping everyone honest as well. I mean, I think as when you're leading a bunch of technology people, it's important, I think, that you're also, you speak the same language and you have the same DNA. It helps me to run the businesses. It always has.
Or at very least an appreciation of what's involved to make something happen. Right?
Correct. Yeah. And like I can roll right in as I do now. Like we're building, in Manna, obviously we're building highly complex stack hardware, software, and the software is different. There's assembly, no, there's not. There's C++, there's Java, there's Python, there's web services, there's real-time robotic code. There's everything. And I understand it all, and I could even write code in it all. And so when we're having meetings, I think it's a sign of respect that when I'm sitting in with the team that I know what it's about, I understand the difficulties, I can appreciate how hard things are, and I can also, and I do frequently guide them on how to build stuff.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that, but I also think it's a good way to run a technology company, certainly at the starting stages of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll definitely delve into Manna here in a little bit more detail, but you're in your kind of late teens, you're working down in Waterford for the games company. What's the next kind of major milestone from a career development perspective for you?
Well, that company went bust. They had a cash flow problem. The UK funders had pulled out. It was the 80s, and that was when I first realised I was a risk taker, because I said, you know what, I'm not going to run back home to my parents. I'm going to start my own video games company.
Right.
Which is what I did with 4.
What age are you here?
19, just about 19.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Bold move. Yeah.
Yeah, but in a move based on ignorance and naivety, I would say. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were a really good bunch of programmers. Like still, some of the guys I started that business with are still the best programmers I've ever worked with.
Right.
Really amazing guys. And we built a company because we had a kind of a contract that had come out of the US, out of a company called Broderbund that worked for Nintendo, wanted us to continue working for them. Right. And on a contract basis. So we had a pipeline already of work to do, so it wasn't that high risk, but we started off, and then we finished a couple of games that we had been working on that got published in the US, and we got another contract for another game to build. So we had cash flow coming in to pay the wages, but we didn't have any business acumen whatsoever.
Right.
And we went out of business 12 months later because we weren't working on a future pipeline. And when the US publisher got the tape from us for the final game, they said, thanks very much, goodbye.
That was it.
Yeah, and we were looking around in Waterford in the late 80s, wondering what's next. And but still, the best work for me, the most rewarding work probably I've ever done at a programming level. I look back wistfully on it, and I have some of the old source code as well, and I have in my house, all the memorabilia on the wall, but I'm I'm so proud of that work. Most people wouldn't care, but in fact there's nearly nobody in the world would care. I care, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm I look back in those times and I wish them on anyone, that type of work that I was doing. And so when that went bust, then I actually, again, serendipity, one of the programmers I'd worked with there had found a great gig in the south of France.
All right.
Working for a company called Amadeus, which is a big travel technology.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's huge now. Back then, there was 100 people there in Sophia Antipolis in the Silicon Valley of the south of France, and this company was owned by many of the world's airlines, and it was a kind of defensive, strategic move to kind of fix the threat of U.S. airlines coming to Europe and controlling distribution of flights. So there was a big strategy going on between Europe and the USA. This entity, this tech company, had been created to do that, and they were just trying to get programmers. And so I got pulled down there. I think I was 20 then, roughly. Yeah, I was 20 because I had my 21st birthday party down there. And I got a job as a consultant programmer on OS2, writing their travel agency front end. I knew nothing about travel, but I knew a lot about coding. Knew nothing about PCs at that stage, a little bit, but I certainly didn't understand business and they had, Arthur Anderson in there running the show, and like I come in as a video games programmer, it was a mismatch made in heaven, because all I wanted to do was write code and make a cool, sexy looking user interface and make the computer do things it couldn't do, and that's not what the customer really wanted. So I mean, I love being in the south of France. It's a great place. I spent 2 years there, and I didn't develop at all as an engineer. I learned nothing, but I had a great 2 years work-life balance. I did all sorts of great things with my time, but I wasn't going anywhere. And then that's a great company to work for, and it still is. Funnily enough, it's still a wonderful company that has really done very well in the travel industry. But I saw an opportunity to build a competitive product.
Right.
And what had happened in the USA had deregulated the travel agency technology market. They had prevented airlines or GDSs from forcing the travel agents to use their software. And so
these are the kind of the central ticketing platforms that
distribution systems, they're called. So Amadeus and Sabre would be the two remaining big ones in Travelport. And they had essentially had an iron lock on travel agencies, and travel agencies sold most flights back then, and the travel agency had to use the GDS's desktop software to sell flights. And what actually was happening was they were manipulating the display, and they were promoting their own airline's flight. So you'd see American Airlines at the top of the list and Aer Lingus down the bottom, and everyone knew that 80% of the flights were sold from the first three, right? So it was literally that simple. It was literally they had a way to force travel agencies to buy the airlines they wanted them to buy, and the US Department of Transportation broke that and said, no, you're not allowed to tell the travel agency what software they're using. So there's an opportunity, and I saw that opportunity. I put a company together in the south of France, which is the worst place to build a company. Well, back then it was, but and then I had the idea, and I was starting to build the software, and then I met a friend, Andreas Cornelissen, who had been the CEO of Avianca.
Oh, wow.
And he was retired in the south of France. And this guy was 50 years old, who was the oldest person I'd ever met in my life.
Yeah.
I felt he was completely irrelevant to me. No, we had no connection, but we were going out for dinner together. He was good fun, he knew how the world worked. And we became friends. And he actually went down to his friends in Mexico and signed up Aeromexico and Mexicana to buy this software that I was thinking about. And so we got a contract for $300,000. I'll never forget it. I couldn't count that high. And I moved to Mexico. I left Amadeus, I moved to Mexico, and I checked into a hotel room, the Marquis on Reforma. I still remember the hotel's still there. And I wrote the software in the room based on what I thought that these guys needed.
Wow.
And it was really interesting because this was a joint venture between American Airlines, Aeromexico, Mexicana, to build a GDS for Latin America, again, to control distribution.
Yeah.
And we got the contract to build the travel agency software. So I built that. That software, believe it or not, is still being used all over Southeast Asia and parts of the United States, and it's 30 years old software. It's
that's incredible.
Shamefully bad piece of software, but Jesus, we signed so many big clients with that software. It's really
and this was
successful.
in your early 20s, is that right?
Yeah, 22. When we signed American Express, that was the big deal. That was, for me, that was the first big deal I'd ever signed, was American Express. That deal ultimately became a $25 million deal. And I was 22 years old, and this software was really going to go places. And we built a company on it. We had a load of people in Mexico, we had 20 people in Mexico, and we were just writing code, and we were starting to implement big. We were starting to sign American Express, Rosenbluth, Carlson, and then IBM came in, and they bought the software. They licensed the source code, so badged it as an IBM product.
Right.
And that I think that's when I really developed as a person more than just a programmer. I think where I started to become not just a programmer but also the sales guy.
Right.
So I was the one pitching customers. I was the one presenting, and I wouldn't say there was no such thing as PowerPoint back then, but I was selling myself and the software, more myself than the software, because the fact was that the software was a commodity product. I mean, at the time it was probably the best in its class, but a better salesperson will always, the software doesn't really matter. It's not really about the software so long as it's more or less functional. But I did learn there that I had my mother's ability to bullshit,
right,
and to sell to story tell.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And my mother developed that later in life as well, because she raised 6 children, but she definitely became a business person herself. And I would say I have that DNA. And I learned that about myself in Mexico, where people reacted to my storytelling, my ability to understand the problem, the technology, and the fact that I was writing the code as well was interesting and was a differentiator. And I took advantage of that. And that's how that company was called VTI. We later renamed it to Eland. The success of that company was, well picked, I think, strategy, good space to be in, good execution in terms of writing the code and keeping the cost down, and good contracting with our customers and doing a good job for them. But also in, I think, my ability to put the sizzle on the steak, which was very important in an enterprise software business, which is what it was. That was very important. So it was as much me as the software. And I learned that I was good at that, or at least I was getting lucky, or else I was good, or a bit of both.
Yeah. You need a bit of both, probably.
Yeah, you need it. You need it. And it is mostly luck. I'm sure you know, it is mostly luck, because the American Express contract only came about with a random meeting of the senior vice president of travel for American Express for Latin America, who happened to be, an Irish guy, Dan Conroy, who recently passed away. I've remained friends with him for decades. But it was a chance meeting where we were building the software for the Mexicans, and like all good things Mexican, they never paid the bills. It went bust. I was a year working with no money. I was bust. I couldn't even pay my hotel bill.
Was the business completely bootstrapped, or did you raise any?
Yeah, it was bootstrapped.
Yeah.
I checked into the hotel on my credit card. I had a bit of savings from France. Had my own computer, which was a big deal. But I was absolutely bust. I had a big credit card bill, no way to even check out of the hotel.
Yeah.
And met Dan. I can't remember exactly how I met Dan, but I met him, and he liked the Irish thing, and we became instant friends.
Yeah.
And he said, even though the software was built for travel agents, he said, you know what, this could be applied to my business,
Right.
And in the end, we automated all of American Express's call centers, both the credit card and the travel part of them, and got pulled up to the mothership up in Phoenix, their headquarters, and we rolled that all across their USA. IBM picked it up all over Southeast Asia, and one of the GDSs in Asia, Abacus, took it up as well. All from one accidental meeting. And again, pure luck, right? But you ride your luck hard.
Yeah.
And you do a good job for the horse, right? So you find a good horse, keep riding it until it dies, and treat it well, while it's winning trophies.
Yeah. That's incredible. And so you're in your early to mid 20s, I'm guessing, at this point. What was the outcome for Eland?
We brought it back to Dublin. So we moved it. We had an office in Phoenix, Arizona, in Mexico, and then I wanted to move back to Dublin. Well, I didn't actually really want to move back to Dublin, but at the time, it was a great time to hire engineers. Like our constraint in that business was hiring really good engineers, customer-facing engineers. So we brought it back to Dublin, South Frederick Street, got offices there, and we grew significantly there to about 130, 140 people, and built the business. That was in 96. And I liked being back in Dublin as well. It was a good place to build a software company. Costs were low.
Yeah.
It was really perfect timing. And built that and forward wind. It kept doing well. It got badly hit in 9/11.
Right.
A lot of our customers were big airlines at the time. So Starlines, United Airlines were a customer. Everything stopped. Use It World went bust. That was a big bad debt for us, actually. But up to then, we were EBITDA positive business, really strong. We had a lot of retained cash on the balance sheet. We were a very healthy company. It was I would say a lifestyle company. We never took on external funding, which was a mistake.
Yeah.
But we kept growing, and then we leaked cash for about 2 years after 9/11. Still healthy, manageable business. And then I sold it in 2003 to a competitor, CETA. Bought it.
Oh, CETA, okay.
CETA, a big multinational consortium owned by the airlines itself.
Yeah.
Very wide footprint. And I thought, look, this is a good exit, an all cash exit, but I'll stick around for a couple of years and make sure that it continues it gets bedded in. And I knew I'm not a big company person at all. There's no way I'm going to be hanging around. No interest, and they knew that too. And it went well. The guy who signed the check in there, Richard Stokes, a lovely guy, and we remain friends as well. I think it's another thing I'm proud of is that I look back at my life, people I've done business with, they invariably stay with me and back me in different ways, or my friends, or trust me, certainly trust me. And that was the case there. I mean, we sold the CEDA for a good price. It was all cash. It was my first big check, that I ever got personally. And it was a retirement check for my friend Andy. And so it was a good outcome. And at the time, we had a big office up in Letterkenny. And that office is still there now. It's rebadged to CEDA. I think there's about 300 people up there. And again, I look back, obviously proudest of the code I've written, but there's all those jobs, all those families that I've created through the different companies. That actually is one of the things when I look back, when I take my last breath, one of the things I said, look, if I make an impact, it's not enterprise software, or it's probably not the video game I wrote, but it is all the people that somehow were on the ride with me and enjoyed it and developed from it, built careers and made their families and their stuff on the back of businesses that we all built together. I feel very good about that.
Yeah. No, it is. It's amazing, and to have done that at such an early stage. So at this stage, you're kind of coming into your late 20s, are you, as part of the CEDA earnout?
I was at 96, backwards calculation. I think of 30, something like 29, 30,
Yeah. And how challenging was it for you at the end of that to kind of figure out what next, or was there a period where you knew that you were leaving to start something new, or?
Yeah, no, I knew. I was wondering, it's funny, when you get your first big check, you don't know what it means. It's difficult to calculate, how much a check, what it means to you really. Does it change things much, or what do you do with your life? Like, it is life changing, or is it just, bank it and move on? And I went through that for a while, and I spent a couple of years at CEDA and gardening, a lot of gardening, actual gardening.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, which I loved. But I enjoyed the time, but I wasn't developing, and I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to build something else, and I wanted to keep learning new technologies, and I wanted to build. And it was, again, serendipity. It was actually the guy, Cathal Friel, who had brokered the sale of Eland, and he was in Marion Stockbrokers, good friend of mine. He calls me up and he says, Bobby, there's this company out in Terranure. They're a car hire business, but, don't cut me off. Hear me out. Go meet these guys. I went and met Greg and Niall Turley. They were looking for a technology guy, as everyone's always looking for a technology guy. And I went and met them, and, car hire business is an awful business. You don't want to get into that, but I could see that what they had was, they also had a website that was selling their own cars for their own car hire company, which that's not an interesting business either. But they had access through relationships with a UK based company to car hires all over Europe. They could sell them. There's no technical way to do that, but if they wanted, they could sell a car in the south of France, rent a car in the south of France. So given what I had done with Eland, and I had all these airlines as my customers, I had great relationships with them. I always believed that airlines shouldn't just be selling. Airlines should be big retailers, right? They have huge captive audience, a lot of them online. You've just bought a flight for 300 quid. You've put your credit card into the website and they're selling you nothing else. I mean, it's the biggest opportunity left on the table ever. And if you think about car hire, it's a commodity product. It's a high margin commodity product if you're the broker, not if you're the car hire company. So if you can get that commodity product into the flight path and, as part of booking your trip, that's a natural marriage. It's a natural upsell. And that's what I said, that's the business, right? So the business is actually get airlines to allow us to monetize that traffic with car hire. That was literally it. So I bought into the company, and really with a smash and grab kind of mission. I said, right, I'm in and out here in 3 years. I'll build a platform and I'll take my shares and go.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, it was more successful than I thought it would be. We built the code in 6 months. I built most of it myself, small team, 4 guys. We built the platform and we got our first airline contract and our second airline contract in 12 months implemented, and it was working. So we could see we had reference customers that were a big brand with a lot of Polish Airlines, a credible brand.
Yeah.
And a low-cost carrier in Italy as well. And we could see that this would stick. And then, I started to do what I do well as I got up on the stage and started talking to all the trade conferences and spread the word that there's a strategy here for airlines. Airlines need to be thinking about strategy. And the strategy is merchandising, retailing. Airlines are retailers. And I would bring in retailing concepts from the bigger retailers like the Amazon, the retailers that knew how to retail online. And I would essentially be educating the airlines of the world through trade shows on how they need to be thinking about their own development. And never talking about car trawler really. I was talking about, look, here's retail and I would even bring in, these behavioral economics, really interesting ideas from science, the best retail in science. And it was good value for money when they listened to me, and it was entertaining. It was always, it was the kind of talk I'd go to myself. Like there were some interesting, data points and concepts. So we were building a halo for car trawler and me, and that was our route to market. That was literally our sales channel, was me speaking to these trade shows. And sure enough, when an airline would start thinking about car hire, they knew about us already, and the door was already open for a conversation. And rinse and repeat for 15 years, literally rinse and repeat. That was all I did for 15 years, was trade shows, in a sense, donating my liver to marketing, right? To meeting clients flying all over the world. It was grueling, it was hard work, but enjoyable. I enjoyed the success of it. I enjoyed the growth of myself and Mike McGouran ran it for, Mike was CEO for 12 years and I was CTO. We loved it. We became good friends. The team, we had 600 people. The culture was just amazing. It was, we had all these young people from all over the world working for us. It was such a great business, and it still is. I exited business 4 years ago. Mike just a little bit before me, and we had a good run. I mean, what can I say? It was very rewarding for us financially, and as people, to have such a success. And it's something that I think is reflective of the Irish tech scene, that you can have leadership positions created, worldwide leadership positions created right here in Dublin or Letterkenny or wherever. And we should aspire to, I think, Ireland should aspire to bigger and better things always, because we've consistently produced world leaders right here in Dublin with, I was not a pot to piss in, as someone would say, but from nothing, right? From a small country, an island, not, that happens to speak English, luckily, with arguably very little support really in terms of capital raising, all of that. Like you kind of have to do it on your own. So structural disadvantages, but somehow, and I'm not just pointing to our own success, but look around at, some of the companies we have built here and created here in Ireland. We're a very entrepreneurial bunch. We're very good at selling the story. People want to work with us, and so I think Car Trawler is a very good example of that. So is Paddy Power. I could go through a list of them. We tend to do, I think, I hate to say the punch above your weight thing, because it's not that. I think we have certain elements about us, our culture, our DNA, whatever, that wants to build and win. And so that worked really well. We destroyed everyone. Our competition was Expedia, was Amadeus, was, you name, big brand, American technology company, well funded. We beat them all, like really beat them. Like we almost monopolized the market with it. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And was that was a private equity exit?
It was, yeah. There was two actually. So the first one was the ECI Partners in 2007, I think. And the second one was BC Partners 4 or 5 years later. Both great exits, and the company was charging forward, like margin was widening, top line was widening, EBITDA was great. And then COVID came, and COVID virtually wiped the company out, because we had a negative working capital model. We were holding customer funds for 6 to 9 months. Like we had a huge float, which in COVID unwinds in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was a big problem. The company got restructured. And then I didn't want to be part of the next, the next part of it. And I was already building Manna at that stage anyway. I had a different passion then. And to be frank, the company didn't need me anymore anyway. And I was bored. I was on the board, I was non-exec anyway. I wasn't say bored, but it wasn't, I was no longer building a company. I was running a company. They're very different things. And so I had Manna as my passion, and it was time to devote all of my time to Manna, because Manna was starting to really be something. And that was the end of Cartoller for me. So I told the new owners, Tower Brook, I said, no, I'm not gonna join for the ride. Best of luck, and you'll see me in the future.
Yeah. So you've got this kind of interesting kind of Venn diagram of your career, initially writing software for the aviation industry, then partnering with the aviation industry for additional services, helping them monetize. Probably a good time post 9/11 for them to look at other revenue streams and supplement their core business. And now you're moving to yet another, let's say, aviation-related industry, which is Manna, again, with a slightly different perspective. So what was the genesis of Manna as an idea? Just for listeners who don't necessarily understand the service, first of all, let's start with the principle of how you came up with the idea, and what was the desired, what does success look like for a Manna delivery, a drone delivery?
Yeah, so I'm sitting in my back garden. I had a couple of glasses of wine, wanted a bag of chips. I'm allowed to have a bag of chips once a month. And for our international guests, a bag of chips is it's a major food group.
Yeah.
In Ireland.
Surprise.
Yeah, French fries with vinegar and salt. And had the munchies, wanted that. My option was jump in the car, break the law, get my bag of chips, walk down to the chipper, die of exposure on the way in the rain and the wind, or not have the chips. And I live in a suburb in Dublin, a place called Rathfarnham. There's 25, 30,000 people there, and no one really can get delivery in Rathfarnham because it's a suburb, and it's very difficult to make that work. The economics of delivery don't work in suburbs. You don't have demand density, supply density. And I mean, I wasn't thinking that at the time. I was thinking, I've got a drone. I had it, everyone's got a drone. I'm not a tech guy, right? I'd broken them apart, learned them. I'd written code to fly the drone. I'd already, I would say disassemble the toaster is the phrase. Tech people always disassemble the toaster. And I had done that, and made the drone do things it's not supposed to do, for learning. And then I thought, Jesus, this drone could easily fly to my chipper, and it could easily carry a bag of chips back. That is how unprofessional I am when I choose to start a business. That is the process. And I said, that's a business. So I go down to the chipper the following day, and I sit there in the chipper to get my bag of chips a day late. And it's a Friday night, I think it was. And there's a guy sitting outside the chipper in a car, big guy. Now, this is a big guy. And he's got a big car, and it's a diesel, and he's running the engine, and he's sitting there. He's the delivery guy, and he's waiting for an order. And an order comes, it's a big bag, probably 4 bags of chips. He drives out. He comes back. I waited. He came back a half an hour later after doing that order. And I said to him, how much you get for that delivery? He said, €4, 4 quid, €4, $4.50. That's what he got for his half an hour work, burning his diesel the whole way, depreciating his car. And I said, how many orders you get a night? He says, that depends on the night. And the weekends, I'll do about 10. So he's getting whatever, right? Not a lot. And the engine doesn't stop, by the way, because it's so cold. He keeps it running.
Yeah.
And he said, if it's raining, I'll get a lot more because blah, blah, blah. But he'll batch, right? He'll take 2 orders at a time, and he'll do about 1.5 orders per hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's making €9. Does anyone tip him? No. Right? Because it's chips. And so I go into the chipper, and I know Liberos and Palantir, if anyone's listening, should go there. It's a great chipper. And I had the chats with them. We have really fun chats. And I said, you know what I'm going to build? I'm going to get my drone. I'm going to fly those chips to my house. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I was interested. It was a bit of fun. But that is literally the start of Manna. And for those that don't know, Manna, our plan is to build something that carries everything from every store to every single home on the planet. And that's where it's going towards now. We're already, we'll get into it, but we're already a long way towards, delivering on that mission.
Yeah.
And that was where the idea came from. But obviously when the technology excitement wore off. The professional Bobby came out, and I started to write my notes and build a plan and think about what are the components to a business like this, and what is the use case you're serving? What are the economics going to be like? What's the capital cost of an aircraft? Do you build it? Do you buy it? All the usual questions if you were starting a business from scratch. And I went through, I'd say, a good professional process of evaluating all the different challenges, all the different technical ones, regulatory ones, business ones, and everything in between. And you could, if you really dig into something like this, you quickly get to it's impossible, it's too hard.
Yeah.
You're going to need too much capital for this. It's just, where do you even start? The skill sets are so varied. We have 120 people in the company now, and we have electrical engineers, we have aeronautical engineers, we have computational fluid dynamics experts, we have structural engineers, we have software, of course, different stacks, we have regulatory experts, consultants. We have, for a start, like a startup, you need, and probably the hardest part, I think, for anyone to build business or a project or a team is to understand the people you're hiring. Usually it's easy for me to hire programmers because I'm a programmer. The skill set is my native tongue. But to hire aeronautical engineers or electrical engineers, like, how do you know that they're good? How do you know anything about them? There's no way to assess other than maybe attitude, personality, maybe, but you don't know how deep they go and how effective they're going to be. And that was a very difficult part. And then even figuring out what skill sets do I need to hire? Is there a way I can buy these drones in, do an RFP? I did an RFI.
Yeah.
And I ran it to, with what I thought was the spec that I needed to figure out first. The big binary question is, does the capital equation work? If you buy an aircraft, can you ultimately pay for itself, right? There's no point if the aircraft costs more that's ever going to earn. So I needed to answer that question. I also needed to answer the question of, okay, do you buy or build? And if you build, what is the skill set that you need, or what are the various skill sets that you need? And I got that information from the RFI. The companies that I met, I probably spoke to 5 or 6 of them around the world, met them as well. I learned, from their org structures and the people I was talking to, that they're all the same. And I knew the components, that you're going to need to hire for and the skills that you're going to need. So I knew what the team was going to look like. And then the next question was, okay, if the capital cost works, if the infrastructure cost, works, or that formula works, do the unit costs work, right? Okay, no point if it costs you 10 quid every delivery and you're making a lot less. Exactly. That's called negative unit economics, which is not a good look, right? And scale a negative number and all that stuff. So I wanted to figure that out, and it was clear now it was a paper exercise, but still you look at the paper exercise and you quickly get to, reliability of electric motors is X, productivity of electric motors is Y, cost of electric motors is Z. What's the cost if you depreciate it over time? And correspondingly the battery was a bit of work to figure that out, but like how many cycles you get from a battery, how many flights can a battery do, all that stuff. So I quickly got to, it is going to be a very high margin business. Actually, you can do a drone delivery at scale for $1, and that's going to be the number to focus on. Is, okay, that's the target. So what I need to build is technology stack that can be scalable. So in other words, so reliable, it's safe, you don't need to think about it. And secondly, that delivers that number, because we know the components that go into that $1. And so to start build a project towards that. And that was the plan. And then finally, no point building anything if you're never going to be allowed to use it, right? So I needed to get validation from authorities, let's say, that if we did this, that it's going to be allowed. So I was lucky enough to get a meeting with the IAA. In fact, I had lunch with one of their senior leaders, and I knew when I'd come out of that meeting that it was going to be a go. I could see that the IAA and Europe, the European regulator, EASA, had been working hard on regulations for a number of years. And I always remember, it was actually a guy called Ralph James in the IAA, an army guy, proper aviation guy. And proper aviation guys don't look very kindly on risk takers and entrepreneurs. It's the most sober industry you could imagine. There's no risk takers in aviation. And I'm the opposite of that. But I could see a very open reception And what he said was, Bobby, we were always wondering when someone would come into us and look for permission to do this.
Yeah.
And we love to support it.
That's one of the things that I would have thought at that time wasn't necessarily, no pun intended, what wasn't necessarily on the radar, as in, it's a completely new business model.
Yeah.
You're effectively building again, no pun intended, vertical stack from the software to the hardware to the delivery process. Were there many people talking to them about this kind of thing at the time, or
There were two companies, one called Amazon, one called Google.
Right.
And they had already been talking to them, and both Amazon and Google had been looking at Ireland as a test bed. And that had all been going on and no one knew about it. And so they had been talking to them, and, correctly, Amazon and Google looked at Europe as a, what does Europe do great? It regulates, right? Europe is the expert in regulation. And that actually, in our space, that puts us ahead. It's a structural advantage because Europe has written the regulations and the legislation, and it's now that the newest regulations are now law. They became law all over Europe in January. And so that's who, there had already been a lot of, I would say, lobbying and discovery by the big guys. And I think when IAA met me, I mean, few people know about me in Dublin anyway because of Card Trawler and the other businesses. And it was very clear that IAA wanted to be part of this, right? They wanted Ireland to be not a test bed, but an exemplar in implementing these regulations and doing what we do well, which is winning in the world. And since that's nearly 4 years ago now, I think the way the IAA have played with in the European world of aviation regulation, they have a great reputation because they're very big. Like 90% of transatlantic flights come through our airspace, and we manage those flights. So they're an industrial scale regulator. That, coupled with, as you know, a very business friendly government, has been for Manna a structural advantage that we enjoy that nobody else has. And we even have the awful weather of Ireland to test us to the limit, right? So worst place to launch a drone delivery business is Ireland. Best place to launch a drone delivery business is Ireland.
Yeah.
But we have a structural advantage by being in Ireland. Small market, easy to get around, easy to, to access different things. But a regulator and a government that wants Ireland to win in this space. Now, if I started this business in the USA, I would be dealing with the FAA, I would be dealing with multiple states, I would be dealing with all sorts of complex stakeholder issues. And it's holding everything in the USA. And so Europe is conservatively 3 years ahead of the USA in readiness to scale this industry. And within Europe, Ireland would be in the top three. There'd be Ireland, Switzerland, Belgium. Those three countries have just really gone for it and are ready to go. And then there's 4 or 5 other markets that are ready this year as well. So if you want to build this industry, you do it in Europe. If you want to build a pragmatic business, you do it in Ireland. So we're live, we're generating revenue, we're trying the hardware, we're testing everything imaginable, and we're scaling in Ireland. And Ireland will be the first country in the world to get really drone delivery for everyone. So next year, 2024, it's our ambition to really give everyone in Ireland drone delivery. Yeah. And because we can be a bit that positive with that. Like, we have already positive unit economics.
Yeah. So we'll mention the US, we'll get onto that in a moment, but you started off, so you have the idea, this enterprise epiphany to start this business. You're engaging with the regulator, you're just starting to build the initial prototypes. Where did you first trial these services?
Yeah.
How did that come about? And take us to where you are now, or even for in a number of markets. And
so we built a proof of concept aircraft in order to raise institutional investment. And that we built that in 6 months, and it worked great. It did autonomous deliveries already, but not in a safe way. You can do it in a field, and it worked. And that demonstrated that the viability of it. Yeah, they basically, oh look, it can carry a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And so we raised a seed round on that, and then we built a proper aircraft that is, big bus, big safe bus, we call it. It's not the world's best aircraft. It's not the world's prettiest aircraft, but it is a very safe aircraft. And it does exactly what you need it to do, and that's all it does. And we built that aircraft, and it took us about 12 months. And then we went to go live in UCD. Our offices were in UC University College Dublin, where our offices were. And we said, the best place to try something this crazy is university, where everyone is crazy anyway. And we got permission from the IAA to do that and the university, and it was going to be a big deal for us.
And the closed trial.
Yeah, closed trial. Like it was, we're only going to fly like 300 yards, and we're going to carry burritos, and it was going to be free, and everyone would see the tech.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we were doing something that hadn't been done before, which is we were flying over people with what I would say a demonstrator aircraft. It had a parachute, but it's high risk in inverted commas because it hasn't been done. And that was all coming into February, March 2020. And then we could see the wave of COVID coming west from China all the way. And as every day that passed, it was getting closer to Ireland, and pretty soon it was going to be very clear that this has arrived in Ireland very soon. And then literally a week before we were due to go live, it was March the 18th, day after Patrick's Day, we were just supposed to go live. It was clear that UCD was going to lock down. There were going to be no students in UCD. There were going to be nobody out anywhere. And that's not a great thing if you're trying to demonstrate something. So we said, you know what, let's look at this, glass half full. If there's nobody out by law, then there's nobody out that you can injure if something goes wrong, right? So we said, hey, we spoke to the IA and we said, we'd like to go to Moneygall. And Moneygall is this rural town in Ireland with 700 people. It's famous for the Barack Obama Plaza. Barack Obama and his wife visited this little tiny town where his eighth cousin, Henry Healy, he met, and they flew Air Force One, or the big helicopter, Air Force Two, I think it is, into the Gaelic football pitch there. And Barack Obama and the wife, Michelle, visited this tiny little town. And ever since then, every single pub is named Obama something in there. Of course, there's 15 pubs for 600 people. And the local Supermax, our version of McDonald's, the Irish version of burger and fries, is there. And I had picked that out as a site for one day. We'll go there because it's easy. They have burgers and fries, they have convenience store, they have pharmacy stuff. And so we said to the look, it's locked down, no one's out, people are cocooning. Most of this little town are old people anyway, right? Because it's very, very rural. So why don't we serve them? Why don't we serve them prescription medicine, milk, bread, all their bare essentials? And, we're killing two birds with one stone there. We're genuinely helping the local community with a delivery service that they didn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
And they're being told to cocoon. Literally, don't go outside your door if you're over the age of 60 or you're going to die instantly. And even the parish priest was afraid of his life. He had God on his side. Right. So we delivered everything. We did a deal with, not a deal, but we did a partnership with the HSE, the Irish Health Service Executive, and we got permission to fly prescription medicines in that town. So we were delivering, so people were able to video call their doctor. Doctor would issue an electronic prescription to the pharmacy, and we flew it from the pharmacy to the customer's house, prescription medicines. So that was another world's first, prescription medicine straight to people's houses. But in reality, most of what we sold was bread, burgers, fries, everything from the convenience store. And we smashed it out of the park. It was so successful. We delivered to 40% of the homes in the town in about 3 months' time. Everyone loved it. And we proved our jobs, right? We know how to operate the thing safely. We had all the data that we collected. We were able to show all the flight logs to the Aviation Authority. And again, with regulation and permissions to come with regulation, some of it is black and white and it's rules-based, of course, and you tick all the boxes and you get your permission. But most of it is based on confidence building, and it's not storytelling in this case, it's the opposite. So therefore, I have different people than me that do that part of our work. But it is about confidence and layers of the onion. And so the more flight you have and the more data that you have to show, the more confidence in what you do. So crawl, walk, run type approach. And Moneygall was perfect for that. And towards the end of the time on Moneygall, we had proven enough. We wanted now to, okay, let's throttle up a little bit here, take on more. and we chose another town. We said we wanted to serve 10,000 people next, because 10,000 people, probably about 100 deliveries a day, and it's still easy, but it's a stretch target for us. And so we went to Oranmore in County Galway, and that's a big suburban town just outside of Galway town, 2,945 homes of 10,000 people. And we did a deal with Tesco, the big supermarket player in UK and Ireland, and we flew from the roof of the supermarket.
So this would be the equivalent of Target or
Correct. Yeah, Walmart would be the comparator for the US. And they're a giant PLC. They have 19,000 separate products in the store. So we had all the product choices that we needed to satisfy, demand. And we also had all the local stores, participating with 19 other of the small local stores, all the coffee shops, all the bookshop, the hardware store, you name it. Literally every vendor in the town wanted to work with the drone delivery. And we were delivering, we were flying 8 kilometers there, like good old distance, not direct line, big circuitous routes that were very long, but still very quick. Like our delivery time was 4.5 minutes there.
And you had to avoid those.
We didn't have to know, but we're still, no one knows anything about us. We don't deserve to fly over people's houses yet. We haven't, demonstrated. Yeah, so we had these, well, I would say, channels through all the green areas of the town, and we would route all the traffic down those channels. There was like 4 or 5 of them that got us to every house, just a longer route. Still, our flight time was very fast. Like we're flying 60 kilometers an hour. No traffic lights, so still really wonderfully fast service. But it meant that we were able to say to the town, and I mean, let's face it, you say to a town and where drone delivery has never been heard of, and you say, hey, we're going to bring our robots and fly them over you for the next year. That's going to be great fun, isn't it? Some of them are going to be worried, and it's nice to be able to say, look, we're respecting you. We're not going to fly these anywhere near you, and the closest we're going to come is to, if you asked us to deliver, we're going to offer 20 meters over your house. And we babysat every single delivery. We sent people around in cars to every single delivery to make sure, wrapped it in cotton wool. The aircraft is fully autonomous. There's no human input into it, but you still make sure you respect the community that you're serving in these early days, and you show them how it works, and you do it that way. But we served pretty much every small vendor there. Like I said, the bookshop, the hardware store, all the coffee shops, everyone. And it was such a huge success. Everyone loved the product. We reached 40% of the houses that we would serve on a regular basis. And we had people order over 200 times drone delivery. And we're charging $5 delivery, so they're not getting it for free. And such was the interest in the product and the convenience of it. And the big learning there was coffee is the killer app for drone delivery. Yeah, coffee is the number one. It's nearly 40% of volume is coffee. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because coffee is a highly perishable product, so you can't really get in your car to bring back a nice coffee or a pastry, and it takes too long. And like the average, like for the people that lived in the outskirts of the town, it's a 40-minute round trip as well to get the coffee. So it's like, but so coffee very quickly became evident that's the killer app, and coffee and pastries. And great business. Everyone wanted it. So we had a very successful year, just over a year in Oranmore. We collected all sorts of great data. We did that whole town with just one aircraft. So the aircraft's very productive. It'll do 70 deliveries a day. So we have a good stack now. It's very efficient. Turnaround time is very quick. Kind of like a low-cost carrier approach. And a hot swap battery, hot swap cargo. So like we developed all of that in Oranmore and optimized it. Yeah. Like the thing with a hardware business and hardware that flies, it is about keeping it simple in the early days, keep it as simple as possible, and use human overload to kind of make it work. And then it's slowly stripping out the humans, that the things are easier, the hot swap is easier. And it takes a lot of time to iterate through that. It's nothing like software. Everything takes much longer, because safety is you're sitting on top of a safety record that has to be absolutely perfect, and morally it has to be perfect as well. So you have to go so slow when you test. You make the slightest change, you even change a bolt on the aircraft, you're bringing it back to the field to do 500 flights or whatever. Everything is just much slower. But anyway, we came out of Oranmore with a really good result, and that was when we overtook pretty much the whole world of drone delivery with Oranmore. And we said, look, okay, we've done enough here now. We need to see what it's like to run concurrent aircraft. Okay, now we have airspace management issues to solve. We have concurrency. We have multiple aircraft landing beside each other where there's humans. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And we said, okay, now we'd like to serve 30 to 50,000 people, because there you've got about probably demand for about 500 deliveries a day. And we chose, by pure chance, we chose a town called Balbriggan, which is in Dublin. And for combination of reasons. One is because it's Dublin, and it means that you're now serving a capital city that has 1.5 million people, so you have room to expand. Two, it's 10 minutes from Dublin Airport, and that 15 minutes by car. So it means now we can start bringing everyone to see the operation. So we have a lot of US, particularly US companies coming over, a lot of European as well. Regulators from all around the world are flying to Dublin to see what the hell is going on. How's this all working? So we're now an example of the most complex drone delivery operation on the planet, 15 minutes from Dublin Airport. And that's it's a nice thing to be able to bring people to. And then finally it was demographically, it was just right, we thought, and size, there's 9,600 homes in Balbriggan and 35,000 people. It's perfect. And then our partner Tesco, again, have a beautiful roof on the car park that we fly off, and there's everything we need right there beside that roof. So it was a nice, easy one. And we're doing now regularly 300 deliveries a day, with 4 or 5 aircraft. We'll soon do about 500 deliveries a day with some new vendors we're bringing on. And we've really matured it so much now that we've gotten economics to the point where it's washing its face. So if we scale that, we wouldn't lose money. It's still not, we still wouldn't scale it. It's not finished, but it's getting there, where we're already beating the alternative, which is road-based delivery. And even the cost base in Europe is much cheaper, the salaries and so on. We're beating European costs per delivery now with the drone. So we've made that kind of inflection point. We've arrived at it, and by the end of the year, we'll have actually a strong margin on a per flight basis. And so we're doing really well. We'll be our aim now is we have another town selected in Dublin, which is 100,000 people. We'll do about 1,000 deliveries a day there by the end of the year. And we've one town in another European market, which I can't name yet, but it's another non-English speaking European market, very large one. And we'll have that town operational at the end of this year. Also a large operation there, 100,000 people, as said. And then we've announced that we're going also to Texas. So we have our first USA project, which is in a town called Hillwood in the Fort Worth area. And so those are, for this year, that's what we'll do. It's still not a business that's scaling, but it's a business. It's almost like it's private equity running it. It's where's your margin? Ignore growth for now, right? But let's talk about margin. Where's the margin now? Where can you get it to? And what's the margin profile look as you scale it? And what we've seen and demonstrated now is we'll deliver quite a strong margin now, a location-based margin by the end of the year, which is worth scaling. But as we scale, there's further unlocks to come. And in fact, we'll continue to widen the margin as we scale it. So it's starting to look like a robotic delivery system should look, which is, difficult to get there. There's a cliff to climb, but once you get there, it's going to start throwing off a lot of cash if you can figure out how to scale it. So next then challenge is scaling manufacturing, boots on the ground to roll out. But like we're planning now for what's that look like over the next several years, and put in place the building blocks to be able to scale it. And I think we've de-risked most of the complicated parts of the operation now.
Yeah. So it's maybe a capital intensive business. I'm assuming the hardware, etc. Plus, and you're proving out the metrics. A typical kind of scale it type of approach. You've got a degree of predictability based on those metrics.
Yeah. But the whole correct. So you look at it from a capital perspective, and it's expensive. I mean, so one part of that is tooling up for manufacturing is an expensive game. You can outsource a lot of it, but you still need a lot of capital just to fund your suppliers to tool up for building the components that you need. That's one challenge, but that's not rocket science. It's been done before, and we have the team to know how to do that. The next part is then when you actually have the tooling done, you actually need to start making the objects. And we have a tiny fleet now, less than 50 aircraft. Now, by the end of the year, early next year, we'll do 500, but those are tiny numbers. I mean, we need for...
There's a magnitude. I mean, it's really significant.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a different, correct. But it's reflective of the maturity now of the platform. You wouldn't build 500 of the aircraft last year because you'd be throwing them all out every month. We have something now that we'll build 500 aircraft and make a lot of money with. And those aircraft will serve us. They'll do 75,000 flights each. They'll be productive over their lifetime. They're still not our final scaling aircraft, but they're enough that in 24 we can deploy across Ireland and another European market and build what I would say is a reasonably large top line business in order to demonstrate the margin profile, the actual profile of the business. We'll do that in 24 and we're ready to do that. And so the capital equation, it's going to be hungry of capital. It's the type of capital that you can use debt for. I mean, so in numbers, simple numbers, 10% of just the UK market, just 10% of the UK market is going to need about 44,000 aircraft in 7,000 locations. So the scale of this thing, you need to think about this not as your typical, this is literally world-changing, $1 trillion+ business. We're going to be delivering something to every suburban home that we go to. We've already shown in 3 communities we've been in that you quickly get to 40% of the households using your product on a regular basis. So you need a lot of aircraft to do that. So you have a lot of capital and just boots on the ground for manufacturing and then operating the service in each of the locations. It's highly fragmented. It's highly distributed in terms of locations because we only want to fly about 3 to 5 kilometer radius operations. So therefore, every community, large community, like if you look at Tala, which is a community in Dublin, large one of 150,000 people, we probably have 4 different operating cells to cover those people. So it needs to be distributed like that. So a lot of people would say that's ugly. I don't like that, but we already have a profile where each location is EBITDA positive at just 100 deliveries a day. So it very quickly becomes, positive contribution on a location basis. So it's only the upfront working capital and the capex part that need to be looked at, and then to think about that, the aircraft pays for itself in 60 days, and after that, it's generating cash.
That's incredible. And I'm assuming that, let's say, the profile of somewhere like Balbriggan, that size, that geographic kind of spread, if that's kind of your sweet spot in terms of size, numbers, etc.
Density is what you think about. So population density. You don't think about the number. So Balbriggan is about 9,500 people per square mile, and so it's the second most dense air population area in Ireland, and funnily enough, is more than its greater population density than 50% of London. So it's very dense, and that's not by accident. We intentionally chose that because the gardens are tiny, the delivery areas footprints are tiny. So we chose the hardest target we could find in Ireland, and it's on the coast, so it's windy as hell as well. It's always raining, it's miserable, but nice. So
just to spend a minute on the user experience here is what, like, so if I'm in Balbriggan,
you order with our app, Manna drone delivery app. You get a list of stores on the app, just like a normal marketplace. You purchase, you fill your basket. The only difference about our basket and a normal e-commerce basket is we measure volume and weight as you're building the basket, and we'll say, okay, you've got too much now, it's a limited cargo. And when you transact, if it's the first time you've ever used us, we give you an overhead view of your house and we ask you to drop a pin where you want us to place the product. And that's it. That pin translates into a high resolution GPS point that we fly to, and autonomously, So the vendor produces the product, they give it to us in a brown paper bag, we load that into the cargo bay of the aircraft, and we stand back, and the aircraft comes back 8 minutes later, 6 minutes later, whatever it is, having delivered. And what the consumer sees is they'll get a notification saying your product has been loaded into the cargo bay, we're taking off in 60 seconds, because everything is, we know to the second. Like, there's nothing left to variability at all. So you get told when we take off, we do say we're going to arrive in 2 minutes, 12 seconds. then you can track the aircraft in real time as it flies. You have the app open, you'll see the aircraft as it's flying. No one ever knows which way to look up in the sky when the drone comes in. I still don't. I always get that wrong. So they're looking at the app and then looking up in the sky for the drone to come, and they're invariably pointing in the wrong direction. And so there's a lot of fun in you're seeing the app arrive, and for your first delivery anyway, that the thing arriving, and then you're finding it in the sky, and they correspond to each other because there's no latency. It's like a half second latency. And it's quite interesting, the first delivery. And so it arrives over that GPS point that you selected. We quickly scan the ground with LiDAR to make sure it's flat and inanimate, i.e. there's no people or dogs. Yeah, no, so mostly no people. And frequently there are obstructions because people will set the point in their driveway, the front of their house, and then there's a car there or something. But so we make sure there is clear. The aircraft descends to about 15 meters currently, so 45 feet. It hovers there for about 5 seconds, make sure there's no little people running around. Then we open the bomb bay doors, and the cargo is winched down to the ground. It takes about 6 seconds. And we winch it quite fast, like at nearly gravity speed. And then about 12 inches before it hits the ground, we start to slow it down and we accelerate the resistance. And right before it touches the ground, it's really gone slow. So yeah, we could deliver a baby if we wanted to, but not a lot of demand for that. So we deliver coffee, eggs, fresh eggs, you name it. Yeah, anything delicate we can deliver. And it's a wonderful experience. I mean, it's a magical experience. Like every first delivery on a street, the entire street is out filming it. And for the first certainly 10, 20 deliveries that people get, they're out watching it every time, and there's great excitement. The kids are out.
So there's
100%. Oh yeah. I mean, the cost of customer acquisition is zero in this business. It's literally you send a tweet or you announce, hey, we're coming to Balbriggan, and that's it. You get 6,000 app installs and everyone's ready to order, and you can't keep up with demand. Everyone wants drone delivery. It is it's the circus is coming to town, and it's such an interesting technology, and everyone wants to try it out. And so what you'll see is and we go to all the schools beforehand, we educate the schools, all the children, we give them free vouchers. So everyone is ready and waiting for the thing to arrive. That costs nothing to do. And so what you'll see is people put their first order in on a Saturday, and it's junk for the kids, jelly snakes, chocolate. They just want to see the drone, and they're texting everyone in their WhatsApp group, hey, the drone's coming in 10 minutes, and the whole street is out. So it's beyond viral. It is viral on steroids, what we're doing. So that's probably the only free ride in this business, is that part of it. But that's usually a very tough thing to do. Like, yeah, correct, it is. I mean, B2C is hard. It's really hard, and more difficult. But no, in our case, we don't need that. So anyway, the first delivery is always for the kids. It's always junk, and it's always great. And then the second delivery is always coffee, and thereafter you start to see groceries coming in, and we have the most interesting orders. We've sold in Balbriggan nearly 7,000 different products now, and really there's some orders that come in that I find really, I would say, validating of what we're doing. Recently there was an order came in for one onion, right? So someone at 6 p.m, the guy had used the service 50 or 60 times already, so he knew how to use it. Well, no, not power, that's middle. Most people, yeah. But he was comfortable, and he was frying his steak. As it turns out, because I called him afterwards to find out what was going on, and he was in the middle of frying a steak and needed an onion, because he does this great thing with an onion where he fries it in butter and brown sugar, and he likes it. And in the old world, he didn't have an onion, right? So in the old world, he was going to be doing without the onion. In the new world, he's getting the onion, and he ordered one onion that cost 30 cents for the onion and $5 for the delivery fee. And he didn't care. The onion was more important than the $5. I like that use case, not because the world won't be, it's $5.30 to get an onion. It'll be a subscription, all you can eat drone delivery, and it's going to be like Amazon Prime, where you just have drone delivery. You're used to it. You use it for everything. You're going to use it for the onion, of course, but you're also going to use it for all your groceries. You're going to use it for your instants, your coffees, that kind of stuff. You're going to use it for your takeaway food. And everything in between. Like the bookshop that we power now gets the customers quicker than Amazon will ever get to them. So we're going to power small communities or large suburban communities, but small vendors in those communities with a technology that only the giants could possibly have. And so you have the local fishmonger, the local bookshop, the local hardware store. Everyone can have drone delivery. Everyone now, every small vendor in every suburb on the planet can get to, say, 15 to 20 square miles of customers in 3 minutes at no cost. Literally, they can just have all those customers, and suddenly the local bookstore in or Balbriggan or wherever can, if they have an online website, they're now an online business with logistics. And that's powerful because the locals want to buy from the local store. They do. But if the local store doesn't deliver the book, then you're going to go to Amazon and buy the book and get it tomorrow. And we're going to change that. We're going to provide this autonomous, scalable, low-cost logistics, magical logistics to every one of these small vendors in the world and let them compete on a par with the giants. But we're also going to power the giants. Don't get me wrong. The giants are looking at this too and want to be part of it. I mean, we recently signed a pretty big deal with Coca-Cola that see what this might be to them, and they've become an investor in the business as well. And so it's strategic, and they're thinking, okay, as a D2C strategy for a big brand, this makes sense, right? Because they can do digital, they can do branding, they can do awareness marketing, digital and hyper-local digital. Why can't they just have a storefront? And the only reason it doesn't work today is because the storefront is a physical footprint and it's not scalable, it's just not viable for a single brand. So therefore they have indirect distribution through supermarkets and the convenience stores and so on. But now they have a direct to consumer proposition where they're providing the product, they're stocking our fridge, they're providing the fridge, they're doing all the inventory. We look like a retailer to them, but they're direct to consumer now. And it means the consumer can call up our app, get a Coca-Cola or a Ben & Jerry's or any of our direct partnerships. Samsung, we also have a partnership with. They can buy directly from that brand and receive the product at our store. So we're going to be powering every channel in a channel and partner agnostic way. And the consumer is going to be benefits because it's going to be instant consumption, much more granular consumption, low cost, not really going to hurt the customer's pocket. Certainly when we get to scale. And I think behavior will change. We're going to drive a complete change in purchasing behavior. It's going to be more granular. There's going to be less food waste. There's going to be less waste. You're not going to be buying too much of anything. And so it's hard to see who loses out here other than the delivery driver. And maybe some centralized big convenience store brands, those kind of things. But we're certainly going to drive level of behavior from consumers in a good way, in a green way, in a safe way, in a way that respects privacy and everything else, and create jobs. Net, we're going to create a lot of jobs. So, we're certainly tracking towards that, and the data that we've collected on terms of CO2 production and comparators to alternative means, and already the business that we've created for the local coffee shops, the local vendors. All the signs are that when we bring this to communities, it's going to be a hugely positive infrastructure for the community.
Yeah. So I'll just touch you briefly on sustainability, and a lot of the listeners would have an ESG remit, and their LPs by extension. What's the profile of that? Your aircraft is.
Yeah, so the aircraft obviously produces no CO2 because it's electric and it's battery powered, and we'll get 1,000 flights out of a battery. So when you think about the end-to-end impact, right? So you have to make a battery in the end, and you have to make an aircraft, but the aircraft has a very useful life. It's 75,000 flights. Battery has about 1,000 deliveries. So the overall impact of CO2. And there's been a couple of studies, one we commissioned and some we didn't. They all come to the same conclusion that we're 8 times better for the environment, less CO2 than equivalent small petrol car. We beat an electric car, we beat a petrol car, we beat a diesel car, we beat a motorbike in terms of the CO2. The only thing that beats us is a guy on a bicycle. But the guy on the bicycle is going to be involved in accidents. He's going to be breaking lights to meet his numbers or her numbers. And you only have to look around. One quick Google search will show you how many delivery drivers are injured or killed on our roads delivering hamburgers. So while it might be better for the environment, it's not great for those young people that are doing those deliveries. So I'm delighted to be ending the gig economy labor which is a terrible job, dangerous job. I think that's a good thing to get rid of that. And so the CO2, and we posted a video recently where we showed a weekend of deliveries in Balbriggan. And so we removed the duplicate. So there was like about 500 or 600 deliveries. And the net contribution of those 500 deliveries in CO2, scientifically proven, is we planted 15 trees, right? So, and that's a small town, right? So if you, in its natural state, Balbriggan will be doing about 500 deliveries a day when we have unconstrained demand. So you'd be planting, say, 20 trees, or I'd say 10 trees a day you're planting with a normal small community. If you scale that up to, say, Tala, you're planting 150 trees a day, right? So that's the way we measure it, just on the environmental part of it. But on the others, the societal and governance, we are going to be creating a lot of jobs. Like, this is big tech creating jobs unusually, because it's an infrastructure, and it's an infrastructure that's completely democratic. That literally, we roll into a town, every business can use it. And we see a world where there could be somebody at home baking cakes or making jewelry or whatever, and they're suddenly on the system, and you can be baking cakes and selling them to people, so long as you have the right license to do that, to sell food. But we see a really democratic world where the aircraft are flying out to vendors, picking up the product, and then going to consumers. Not in the early days, but in, as we scale, we certainly, the position we want to be in the pyramid is the logistics layer. We don't want to be Amazon. We don't want to compete with our vendors. We don't want to be the big seller of bananas or whatever it is. We just want to move them around. And you'll see we did a deal with Just Eat. We partnered with Just Eat, back in Armore. We hopefully will power all of the aggregators as they see punishing single digit, if not negative, unit economics. And we see a world where we can transform their economics and not destroying jobs, creating jobs through the demand and through the way we power these small restaurants. And don't forget, restaurants lose money on a marginal business they get from delivery is negative, right? So they're losing money or quite often losing money anyway. So we're going to fix a lot of that and create jobs in the process. And so the ESG, I think, component of what we're doing is significant. And we get a lot of inbound now from specific ESG funds, or every fund has an ESG mandate in some way, and there's some specialist funds. But I would certainly see that drone delivery and robotic delivery does tick the boxes, and it's provable that it ticks the boxes. So that's a big tailwind we have.
Yeah. And just to kind of briefly wrap up on the Manna story, you mentioned you just signed a strategic investment with Coca-Cola. You got your first US trial in the offing. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so while the USA behind Europe in regulatory ability, so probably 2, maybe even 3 years behind, we don't want anyone to think that we're a European drone delivery business. We're a worldwide drone delivery business, and with particular intent on the USA. It's the biggest market for what we're going to be doing, for sure. And so we felt it was important to demonstrate our intent there. And so we've signed a pretty big partner in Hillwood, the Alliance Texas business there to serve their community. And they're a big real estate player there. There's going to be 10,000 people we'll serve. And that's, we don't believe that we're going to be scaling in the USA early. We think we're going to scale in Europe first, but we do not want anyone to think that we're the European version of that successful business. And no, we expect to take a leadership position in the USA. We think we're already ahead of pretty much everyone in the world other than Google, I think. We intend to use our technology in the USA and win there. So there's as much, it's not optics, but it's a statement of intent that we're in Texas. And so that's important. And then the Coca-Cola deal, we've done a number of other direct deals with brands, but the Coca-Cola one is interesting because this is a strategic deal for Coca-Cola. This is them recognizing, I think, that when they look at how the future will unfold, and there's how they get the customers, how they make sure their beverages, their coffee, and so on has a friction-free path to the customer, and that they can do what they do well, which is make products at scale and market those products and brand those products. And Coke is one of the top 50 brands in the world. they're not messing around. They're not risking their brand by pulling a stunt. So for me, Coca-Cola one was important to demonstrate our meaning to big brands. And it's early to do a deal like that because we're not scaling, and we're going to be scaling a little bit in next year, but we won't be going throttle up really until we take the company public or raise a significant funding round. I think it's an important demonstration of what we mean to big brands. And I think it was important that we got a brand with the credibility that Coca-Cola has as well. And you marry that up to the project in Texas. I think it was an important, if early, but an important statement from us to do that. So with Coca-Cola, while the deal is important and the commercial deal is very important, Coca-Cola wanted skin in the game, as did we. And we felt that having Coca-Cola as an investor, as a corporate investor, is the right time for us. Because a business like us, we're a capital intensive business. We're always fundraising. To date, anyway, it's always been financial investors, so VCs, entirely VCs. We've raised $45 million, so it's a little and it's a lot, depending on how you think of things. It's a capital intensive business. And bringing Coca-Cola on as an investor was important, I think, to make the deal more than a marketing trick or a ploy. It underlines that this is strategic for Coca-Cola. It's a big check that they wrote for us, so it wasn't, and as anyone will know, it takes time to work with a big corporate with such an important brand. And I think that deal is so important for us from the endorsement that we get from it. Coca-Cola have looked around, they've looked at all the other drone delivery businesses in the world, and they chose to work with us and to invest in us. So I think that's an endorsement of our space, and it's endorsement of us in the space. And then just from a financial prudence point of view, I don't say it de-risks us, because we're going to be needing to raise a lot of capital for the business. But I think it's helpful for us to have that relationship with Coke. They're going to be very important as one of our corporate investors as we go forward. And also, we had the CEO of Coca-Cola come to Balbriggan. It's incredible. We're in Balbriggan. We're a small Irish technology company, and I think all of Ireland is very proud of what we've achieved. We have, our Taoiseach, our finance minister, we have our government out there on the roof. We have Enterprise Ireland, IDA, IAA. We have literally all of the important actors in Ireland supporting us and helping us. And the result is one of the biggest brands in the world backing us, so it's incredible.
It is. It is in a relatively short space of time. I know a lot has happened over in the past, I guess, 3.5, 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. 3 real years. A year of planning and messing around, as I would say. Yeah. So we've done it. Yeah, quick. Yeah, sure.
We don't delve too much into Coca-Cola investment thesis, but you mentioned kind of purchasing behaviors changing with this kind of technology. The nature of the products that they have, which are kind of discretionary impulse purchases, etc. Was that kind of a major factor in terms of the direct to consumer
for Coca-Cola?
For Coca-Cola, yeah.
I'd say so, yeah. If you're at the outside looking in, you don't know what drone delivery is. It's drone delivery, but you don't know behavior. You don't know how people are going to use it. And we didn't either, to be frank. We had some ideas. We didn't anticipate coffee would be as popular. We knew it would be useful, but we didn't know how useful. And when we show Coca-Cola the data, our volume, obviously showing them, lifting the kimono, showing them the behavior, because that's for sure, that's a factor. And they're thinking, people are willing to open an app. They're willing to fund the cost of delivery by paying for it, and they're ordering everything. This is a channel to market that's going to be important. And you put it alongside Ben & Jerry's, a Unilever product. Ben & Jerry's, everyone knows Ben & Jerry's, and who we also have a partnership with. And you look at, they have 11,000 physical stores selling Ben & Jerry's ice cream. That's crazy business. Now you think about 11,000 physical stores with staff and all of those issues, retail footprint that comes with selling ice cream. Now, ice cream is a high margin product, but think about a future where we are in every suburb in Europe and the United States and everywhere else in the world. Now there's robots that can take any product directly to consumers. So Coca-Cola saw a combination of, look, here's how retail works today. It works for them very well. But imagine if there was robots everywhere and you had centralized inventory that's easy to do. And literally all you need to do is centralize that inventory and do the marketing and you're in customers' hands. Incredible. And then we had the data to show them that customers are willing. We had customers ordering Coca-Cola all the time anyway, without even trying, and onions and broccoli and carrots and everything in between. So they saw our data and like it's still very early days, low volume, but we weren't juicing it because we're charging customers for this service. Very, very important. People don't understand how important that is. If you give something away for free, you don't see true behavior. And if you charge them for the service, even a small amount, but we charge them quite a bit, you see real behavior. And the only bit now that we don't know, because we haven't done it, is what does a all you can eat look like? What does a drone delivery prime look like? And we'll do that soon to understand what that behavior looks like. And I suspect that our business model will evolve into some form of baseline subscription and then some form of revenue, blended revenue through product sales, commissions, and so on. And we'll evolve that. And truth is, we don't have the data to say what it'll look like. But what I can tell you for sure is that our base cost of $1 cost to operate a delivery, there's a lot of room to make this very, very affordable for consumers and still make a huge margin at scale.
Yeah. Well, I certainly look forward to being a recipient of that delivery service. I'll be a strong proponent of it for sure. So zooming back out from Manna, not content with everything we're doing there. You've got a separate initiative, this maybe initiative. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Healy Travel Technology is a business that I founded with Mike McGouran, who was the CEO of Car Trawler that we ran together. And Healy is essentially, we build Car Trawler. It's a juggernaut. It's over $1 billion, nearly $2 billion in TTV. But it was born at a time when the broker business model was the right business model for car. And as we grew and became bigger, we became more and more of a problem for the very customers, the car hire companies that we were distributing for, and a huge problem for them. And then there's misaligned incentives in the marketplace of consumer, distributor, the airline, the car hire company, the broker, Car Trawler, the misaligned, right? So the customer experience ended up being horrible because we're selling our insurance product, not the supplier. So we were doing the right thing, maximize margin, but creating huge friction and huge problems for the suppliers. And so, when we exited Car Trawler, it wasn't that I had a lot of spare time, but I had a team ready to go, a travel technology team that not working for Manna, but that were, we'd worked together for 30 years. I know these guys. So he said, why don't we do it again? And so that's what we've done. We've very quickly together put a team of 25 people together. We've built Healy in 6 months. We've signed 4 airlines. We've gone live with Lufthansa, one of the biggest airlines in Europe already. And we've replicated the technology stack that we had done before in a better way, more modern, obviously Amazon hosted and so on, with a disruptive business model that fixes all of the friction that used to be in the marketplace before. And I would say that's not an ugly business. To anyone else, that looks like an awesome business that's going to be huge, and it is. It's already like we're going to be EBITDA positive next year already, and it's going to grow like hell and exciting, right? But I'm a non-exec in that. I'm just the team. I'm on the board, and Mike's running it, and I love it. And the team are unbelievable. The culture is great, but it's interesting because it's a double gig for me. And you look and say, why would you do that when you already have this? Are you not busy enough? Truth is, I'm a big believer in, I would say, people like me being able to run multiple projects at once. And I think the strength I have in the story and the strategy and the hiring and all of that stuff, it is really quite scalable. And the success or failure of business is primarily down to people that you hire, not the work that you do individually, right? And that actually is much more scalable than most people would think. So, like, I've done a lot of investments in companies, and actually advise about private equity companies. I'm all over the place doing everything, but I'm also developing myself. Even though I'm ancient, I'm learning a lot. And I'm learning always from engagement with different environments, people, different projects, and so on. And I think I'm bettering myself by doing what I'm doing now. And Meili is a great example of that, where I just briefly apply myself, pull the team in, write the strategy, keep an eye on the rate. We rate the VC round for it, and we're in closing another round actually as well. That'll be the last round. Then it'll just be a boring profitable business, and you, it's a little bit unusual. I think there's some precedents of people running multiple companies around the world, for better, for worse. But I certainly feel that it's an opportunity for me that, I'm taking advantage of my past there with car trawler, knowing the team that I could pull in to run it. It's more like an investment than a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I worked for a period for Cisco and was listening to an interview with John Chambers, who was the CEO at the time, grew that company massively, really responsible for Cisco becoming the dominant force that it became. And, he described as kind of, over time, developing playbooks that he could take to multiple businesses. He ultimately was involved in lots of different businesses, still is. And, he described it kind of almost like seeing around corners, but I guess it's more like experience tells you how this is likely to play out. And so the more you're exposed to out of running your own business, dealing with the challenges of running your own business, dealing with people, all the kind of everything that comes with being an entrepreneur. That's, I guess, was an element of that playbook.
For sure. I mean, experience is real. You do get better at making decisions. Some people get more risk averse as they get older. I certainly don't. I'm always rolling the dice. Life wouldn't be much fun if you got too risk averse. But I think my decision making is better. Still, like, not much better now. Don't get me wrong. I'm 14 years working now, and I'm only a little bit better than I was when I started, but enough. Like, the human brain is one that's trained through experiences, and hopefully your collection of experiences train you are the right experiences, right? It's exactly like a machine learning model. Better data that goes into it, the better the output. And it's no different for a human, for a brain. It's like you get trained on experiences that are very, very narrow because it's just your one life. And I've, had really interesting, good experiences, both deep and wide, across business, that definitely make me a better entrepreneur for sure. And I can tell you that Meili and Manna have benefited from my experience. But I would say I would do nearly as good a job even as a young Bobby. And I'm not that smart, by the way, just to be clear, right? I'm a risk taker, good storyteller, all that stuff, but not much smarter than your average Joe, I don't think. But my experience makes me better for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just as we kind of come to wrap up here, that's a good segue across all of these endeavors, these entrepreneurial endeavors. There's good and bad, right? So what would you say are the things that excite you most about, not necessarily the business, but what you do in that business? And then conversely, what are the things that you dread or that you prefer not to have you feel this? Maybe you've had the ability to step away from it, but
the thing I dread is easy for me. It's scaling the people part of the organization. I think that's something I'm still not good enough at. What I would say, the management scaling. And I don't really think I want to do that either. Don't think I want to be the CEO of a 10,000 person company. And I think I'd be maybe not very good at it, but or maybe I would be. I don't know. I don't dread it though. I mean, I have absolutely no dread whatsoever on either of these businesses. The thing I enjoy is learning. I still love to learn. I know nothing about hardware, but now I do, or I didn't when I started this. I'm learning a lot, and I enjoy the technology learning. But I think what I enjoy most about this business is because I've never built a VC-backed business before. It's always been either a standalone profitable business or the same again, but then private equity backed. So we have a bit of discipline, you have a board, all those things. Now I'm in the wild west of VC where you're selling a dream and they don't want to hear about a dumb $1 billion company. They want to hear about $100 billion company. And what they want to see is ambition and madness almost, and ability to build a team of similarly, crazy people with huge ambition and selling the story. And I'm finding that really interesting and enjoyable. I love when I raised my seed round, I pitched about 80 firms and got one yes. And I came away feeling sorry for the 79 firms that said no. Genuinely, like, honest to God, really, not in a flippant way, but I really said, oh my God, you're not getting this. That's incredible. How can you not get this? Yeah. And I wouldn't be usually like that. I'd always have a bit of doubt. I'd always say, when someone is crazy, they think everyone else is the crazy person. But in this case, I have such a degree of conviction that when someone would say no to me, I was really, I was not surprised. And it is a bit mad we're building, but really coming away in no way dented whatsoever by the 79 no's. Not in the slightest bit. I was so certain, still am, that there's no way this fails unless we don't have enough capital. Really, there's literally no way this is not going to be an absolutely gigantic business. Like, literally. And I've never been able to say that about anything. And the only risk we have is execution is not a risk. Market appetite is not a risk. Market size, not a risk. Capital. And do I worry about that? No. I mean, I'm happy to fail. I have no problem failing. So long as I die trying hard. None at all. I won't be embarrassed by it. Wouldn't be, whatever, dragged through the streets. I don't care. I won't celebrate it, but I'll talk about it and whatever, if it ever happened. There's no risk to what we're doing other than capital and the environment for capital. But we can manage. I think we're well funded now. We closed the bridge round in December. We'll be raising again, probably early 2024. And that will be with a location-based, profitable, with data behind it to say, okay, let's roll out across, Ireland and something else, and do the next step of this. But still pre-real throttling up, but raising around, I call it an A extension or a B, don't know, but it'd be whatever, might be 50 million, 100 million, don't know, depends on the markets at the time. It'll be a conservative round that'll generate a solid, real EBITDA positive business. And I don't worry about that at all. I can see that's not even within grasp. We have that written down. We know exactly how to do that and what's in it. Almost the way a well-run EBITDA positive business would do. And I love the storytelling. I love meeting new VCs. I love telling them the story. I love showing them what we've achieved as well, because there's a bit of bragging now, right? There used to be promises a few years ago. Now it's bragging. First thing I show them is data. I show them our flight times. I show them the video of all our flights. I show them all this stuff. So I start up like that, and yeah, it's a good position to be in, and I enjoy it. And then the other thing I like is I like playing the game, the Twitter game, and the branding and the messaging. I find it a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's another language almost, and it's entertaining. But number one for me is still writing code. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just kind of in closing here, Bobby, it is a capital intensive business. I'm sure a number of our listeners might want to get in contact with you. Where can they learn more? How can they connect with you? You are very active on Twitter. So where's the best place?
They want to, I love talking to people, no matter what, whether they want to invest or just want to learn or contribute in some way. So LinkedIn is obviously the easiest way to find me. Just add me and message me. You get straight to me. And I have a lot of bandwidth. I love to talk to people about the business, answer their questions and so on. I love the support as well. So follow me and look on Twitter. You'll have a lot of fun following my Twitter feed, because I talk about the business a lot, and I post, some would say almost irresponsibly, post very transparently on how the business is doing, all the things we're doing. So if you have a technical mind or you're just interested in drone delivery, I'm certainly a good account to follow. Real Bobby Healy. is my handle. But if you want to talk to me, LinkedIn is the way, and I'd love to talk to some of your listeners.
Great. Well, yeah, I can wholeheartedly support that. So following myself on Twitter and everything from thoughts on ChatGPT and of course the business itself and more. So, well, Bobby, it's been absolutely brilliant. This is the first of our Founders series.
Keep first and the best.
First, yes, absolutely. We set the bar here. So really appreciate your time. You do have a lot going on. So thanks for coming in to talk to us, and the very best of luck with your ventures.
Pleasure to be here, Ferdy. Thank you.